As some of you probably know, this is Leo Major, the one-eyed badass who took over an entire town pretty much all by himself and fought off hundreds of Germans to make it happen and captured them by the dozens. And I figured, you know what, not everyone knows about him, and I figured let's watch the video together so that we can learn more about him, because it's a very interesting story. He's an all-around badass, not just here but in other wars as well. I've even written a song about him. Actually, some shameless self-promotion. If you go to Taki on Spotify or anywhere else and go to Major Leo, you can actually listen to it. It's a metal song, of course, but it's about his story. Although I make metal music in general, but whatever. That's the song that I've written about him. But without further ado, let's just jump into it and see what this is all about.
Leo Major, the one-eyed scout who liberated a whole town.
Also, why is this in French? I guess let's put it in English.
By himself. World War II. In World War II, for the Canadian effort, one soldier stands out from all the rest. Leo Major. He was...
That's a town, actually, Zwolle, which to this day is about like a Dutch town of 100,000 people, so it's a
French-Canadian from Montreal, Canada. In 1940, at the age of 19...
Oh, he was French-Canadian. That does make me lose respect for him a little bit, because, you know, French people...
He joined the Regiment de la Chaudière of the Canadian Army. Their insignia underlines their fierce fighting reputation, consisting of two crossed Vickers machine guns with a beaver above, supporting fleur-de-lis.
It kind of does look badass. Imagine having like a pin of that.
Private Leo Major first saw action at D-Day in France, taking part in the Normandy landings on June 6, 1944. Straight away, he distinguished himself as a scout behind enemy lines by capturing a German communications half-track full of secret code books. He then forced the captured crew to drive the Hanomag towards friendly lines, but was fired upon with anti-tank guns by British and Canadian troops. Leo had to climb on top of the vehicle to get them to stop firing as they drove closer, and later remarked how happy he was that the British and Canadian soldiers didn't know how to shoot.
Dude, this is so badass. Imagine you're at your job, get a new call, like first day, he just utterly destroys everything you thought was ever possible. Motherfucker captures a tank with people inside and secret documents and brings it back. How are you supposed to top that? Well, he's gonna show you, because the only person that can top him is himself, and he just goes on to do even dumber and more incredible shit.
When the English officer asked Leo to hand over the Hanomag, Leo refused outright, stating that it was a Quebec man who captured it, and so it was handed over to the Chaudière Regiment. His war was nearly cut short when a few days later he was scouting ahead of his unit. Leo unexpectedly encountered a patrolling elite Waffen-SS unit. In the ensuing firefight, he managed to kill 4.
I don't want to be like that guy, but how elite can they be when they just get gunned out by one dude? Like, I know Leo Major is this impressive motherfucker in essence, but one guy, can no one aim? I don't know. Did he have aim bots on or something?
The enemy soldiers, but one of them fatally...
Are his reflexes that much faster than anyone else that he can out-move 4 people at once?
Wounded, managed to throw a phosphorus grenade, and Leo was hit, damaging his left eye badly.
I feel like the rest is just that bad.
Leo was then sent to a field hospital for treatment. Leo had to wear an eye patch while his eye healed, and he remarked on how he looked like a pirate. Remarkably, he refused to be sent home, stating that he only needed one good eye to aim a rifle. Quickly, he returned to the front line.
He picks up rifle, fucks off,
line, and continued to act as a scout and sniper for his unit. Shortly after returning to active service in October 1944, he was involved in the month-long Battle of the Scheldt in Holland, which involved much heavy fighting and several amphibious landings.
It also goes through the Belgian lands as well, a little known fact.
One day during this prolonged battle, Leo's commanding officer had ordered him to find the 50 zombies who had gone missing on patrol earlier. Zombie was a slang term used by Canadian volunteers for unenthusiastic, inexperienced Canadian conscripts.
Oh, that makes sense, because in like Hoi 4, there's also the Release the Zombies focus that gives you manpower, so that makes sense. Oh,
Leo was
I never knew that.
Carrying out the reconnaissance by himself, as always wearing PT sneakers instead of heavy boots. He was deep behind enemy lines, in the dark, in freezing cold rain, muttering to himself.
Was the PT sneakers just because, you know, are they supposed to be like quieter? Or is it just like, oh, I like how they look, I'm not gonna wear any boots?
I am frozen and wet because of you, so you will pay. Drenched to the skin while not finding the zombies, he did come across a garrison of German regular troops, sleeping in trenches that they had been digging all day. Noticing a snoring German officer, Leo woke him up, pointing his Sten gun at him, and then motioned him to order his men to follow him. One soldier raised his rifle and was shot dead by Leo, followed by 3 others who joined the firefight. After this, he shouted,
again, his reflexes are just inhuman. That's probably why. I really wish I knew how come he consistently wins all his battles.
Achtung and Handen hoch, and the garrison quickly decided to surrender to him. He then single-handedly marched 93 German soldiers back to the Allied line.
Parts of his stories on Wikipedia are embellished, obviously, but there's always facts in lies. 93. How do 100 people get captured by one dude? This is insane.
But on the way there, they were attacked by Waffen-SS troops manning an artillery battery from a neighboring village, who were infuriated that their fellow countrymen were surrendering. This left a lasting impression on Leo. The Waffen-SS unit managed to kill and injure a number of the German prisoners before being driven off by an Allied Sherman tank. Leo then handed over 93 German prisoners to...
Well, I don't think it's 93, because the Waffen-SS gunned down a bunch of them.
His speechless commander. For his act of bravery, Leo was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal.
This one I think he refused, right? Because it was Montgomery that wanted to give him
which is the second highest award in the British and Commonwealth, the Victoria Cross being the only one higher. But surprisingly, he declined the medal, feeling the British commander, General Montgomery, who was going to present him with the award, was incompetent and therefore in no position to give him that medal. Then in February 1940,
I think he felt that Montgomery was incompetent because of a recent maneuver that Montgomery pulled, which led to a lot of losses on Canadian side, or just like Ally side in general. I think
as his unit was fighting in the Rhineland in Germany, the Bren gun carrier he was traveling in hit a mine, wrecking the vehicle and killing all its occupants except Leo.
You guys ever watched Unbreakable? Like the movie with the bald badass that usually plays bald badasses in Hollywood movies. I was gonna say Steven Seagal. No, not Steven Seagal. You know, the bald one with the 9 o'clock shadow at all times. That sounds British. I forget his name, but he was in a movie where he was living a regular life, but discovered that he actually had superpowers because he was like the only one that survived like a train crash, and his body was just so goddamn resilient. I feel like maybe that's the same thing.
He was severely injured, including two.
Because his reflexes are incredible, his body indestructible.
Badly broken ankles, 4 ribs, and his back in 3 places. Leo again refused to be shipped back home, and after a short spell in a Belgian hospital, he returned to his unit in time for their final attack to clear Holland of the last of its German occupiers.
How? He broke his back in 3 places. He broke ribs, he broke his ankles badly. How did you just say, nah, put me back in, coach?
So on April 13, 1945, the Allies were preparing to attack the large Dutch town of Zwolle, but were unsure of the strength or deployment of the German forces in the town. That evening, Leo and his friend Corporal Willie Arsenault volunteered to carry out a recon of the area. The city was planned to be bombed by Allied artillery, and this is something Leo and Willie wanted to prevent. When the two approached the outskirts of the silent town, the Germans spotted Willie after his grenade bag made a rattling noise, and he was killed by enemy machine gun fire.
That's such a, not a letdown, just so anticlimactic. You get on a magic trip with this badass that catches like 100 people at once, dies instantly.
Leo took 2 of them out, but the others fled in a vehicle. He then took his friend's Sten gun, an extra bag of grenades, then laid his lifeless body on the side. So enraged was Leo that he would go on a one-man rampage that lasted the whole night, using his...
They just pissed him off.
Submachine gun.
He wasn't even sad, he just pissed off.
Bags full of grenades. He hijacked a nearby German scout car, disarming the driver and taking his MP-40, adding a 3rd submachine gun to his inventory.
Is it collecting weapons or something?
Made him drive to a hotel, then entered a bar. There he disarmed a German officer who could speak French to Leo, and he made him aware that the town was to be bombed by Canadian artillery, which would result in German military and civilian casualties. The officer understood, and in good faith, Leo handed him back his pistol, allowing him to drive off in the hopes that he would evacuate his troops rather than rally an attack. Leo moved around the town for a few hours in the dead of night, firing on any German units he came up against, throwing grenades and making as much noise.
They're not even hitting him.
Around town as possible.
He's gunning down
His idea was to confuse the enemy into believing that they were under attack by a far larger Allied force storming the city. He proceeded in killing or capturing German defenders as he moved from street to street, using the local river and church as reference points so as not to get lost. Every time he had enough prisoners, normally between 8 to 10, he would march them back to the Allied lines and drop them off, before returning to the town to carry on his one-man assault.
How? Couldn't even one of them be like, you know what? I'm gonna shank him or like beat him up while he's not looking, because he's probably very preoccupied having a gunfight with like 10 different dudes at the same time. And not a single one of those prisoners is like, you know what? Nah. Although I did hear, people were so scared of the Eastern Front. Well, Germans were so scared of the Eastern Front, they were falling over themselves just to get captured by the Allies. So maybe that's probably why.
To have done this around 10 times. 4 times in the night he had to force his way into civilian houses to rest. Although terrified by his initial appearance, once they understood he was Canadian, they looked after Leo. During his rampage, he also attacked and set light to the Gestapo headquarters, further adding to the confusion. Then, finding
the dude's just a straight-up menace.
The SS headquarters, he engaged in a firefight, killing 4 SS officers inside. Then, later, Leo came across a group of townsmen by chance. This included a local policeman by the name of Frit Kuiper. All of these men were secretly members of the Dutch resistance. Leo then explained to them that the town was liberated. Then the group went on to take the town hall and bring the civilians out onto the streets. By 4:30 a.m., the German garrison had fled the town, and Leo had single-handedly liberated Zwolle.
Dude, that's so
Leo retrieved his friend.
Yeah, that's just one of the wars that he was in.
And Willie Arsenault's body, and returned to his unit, who had yet to advance into the town.
Where obviously he wasn't.
On that morning of April 14th, the Allied forces entered the town without a shot being fired, and without the loss of civilian life from the planned bombardment, due to Leo's outstanding bravery the previous night. For his heroism above and beyond the call of duty, he was again awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal, and this time he accepted it.
Because
after the war, Leo left the army and returned to civilian life to resume his old job as a pipe fitter. With the start of the
How do you return back home? How do people react to him coming back? Because surely the local newspaper must have picked up, hey yo, Canadian badass literally captured dozens of people at a time, up to like a 93 at once, destroyed hundreds of Germans in a single night, and single-handedly took over a Dutch town. How are the local people supposed to react? How is his neighbor Jean-Paul Jacques supposed to be like, oh hey neighbor, how you been? How was Europe? Oh, captured a few hundred people, killed a few hundred more, liberated a town by myself.
Korean War in
they
1950.
react.
The Canadian Army joined the United Nations forces in fighting the Communist Chinese and North Korean invasion of South Korea. Leo, though only 29 years old, was seen as a veteran with a special skill set and was recruited to rejoin the army and become a member of a special scout and sniper team. Then, in November 1951, the Communists attempted to take some strategic important high ground just 40 miles away from Seoul, the South Korean capital. The fighting was based around the vitally important Hill 355, nicknamed Little Gibraltar, and Hill 277. Chinese troops had captured it from the Americans, and Leo was to recapture and hold the hill. The fighting raged for days, and the Canadian commander, Lieutenant Colonel Jacques Dextraz, declared, "In the event the battalion is attacked, there will be no withdrawal, no platoons overrun, and no panics." During the battle, Leo commanded a unit of around 18 men, repelling whole Chinese divisions while enduring heavy artillery and mortar barrages.
How big was the Chinese division, though, at the time? Probably at least 10 times bigger than what
Even though Leo had been ordered to retreat when the Chinese divisions counterattacked, he refused. Instead, he demanded that the commander of the mortar platoon, Captain Charlie Forbes, rain mortar fire on the enemy. The mortar fire was so close to Leo's position that the commander could hear the bombs explode when Leo spoke on his radio. And it was so intense that the mortar barrels warped from their rate of fire.
Jesus Christ.
For his valor and leadership under fire, Leo was awarded another Distinguished Conduct Medal for capturing...
He's just collecting medals left and right. Dude's back. If it wasn't broken thanks to the war, it certainly would have been broken from carrying all that steel on his fucking chest from all the medals.
And holding the key hill. Leo was the only Canadian to win the Distinguished Conduct Medal in 2 separate wars.
Yeah, he got to, but
he lived a quiet life afterwards, and in 2008, at the age of 87, passed away, having been married for 57 years and having 4 children.
It's kind of wholesome. It's incredible that such a badass was just like living a normal life. I wonder how often he gets spoken up about this. Like, probably not as much as he got older, but like right after the wars, people would have been like, "Hey, yo, how big your dick?" Then he'd have to like whip it out and be like, "Oh, it rolls down to the floor. It is what it is, man." Oh yeah, and there was like a street named after him as well. Canadese eerste bevrijder van Zwolle. The Canadian first liberator of Zwolle. There we go. So yeah, that's pretty much the story. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, you know, simple history. Wait, what? Let's fix this. I thought I was subscribed, but I guess it unsubscribed me maybe. But subscribe to this channel. Watch this video as well. Subscribe to mine as well, and maybe maybe get over in here. You know, we got 1,000 monthly listeners, but what about 10,000, 100,000, or 1 million monthly listeners? That would be nice as well. Make good music, and you like good music, so definitely come check it out. Anyway, have a good one. Hopefully I'll see you next time, and hopefully you have a nice day.